The Iran strategy matrix means that from now on, everything they do must fit into the strategy matrix. It must accomplish the objectives of the strategy matrix. So the first thing it must do is unite the population. Second thing it must do is build alliances. And the third thing is win global opinion. And the fourth is weaken the enemy. So in other words, everything that Iran is going to do from now until the actual invasion will be to accomplish all four goals at once. And it must, if it is to survive a full-scale American invasion. So, unite the population. What does this mean? It means that you win the war depending on how much your population is willing to resist the invasion. And it turns out that even though the Iranians right now are divided, okay, there's a lot of opposition towards the current government in Iran. As some of you know, there have been some protests over the past few years, women protesting for more rights in Iran. So there's a lot of division in that country. But I think that most Iranians would resist an invasion. And the reason why is that the Iranians have a very bad history with Westerners. So over time, as Israel and as America continues to be aggressive towards Iran, the population will start to coalesce and fight against the Americans. So that's unite the population. Second is build alliances. Iran has two layers of alliance. The first layer is called the axis of resistance, which I asked you to research. And the axis of resistance includes the Shia militias in Iraq, Syria, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas, and the Houthis in Yemen. What's important to understand is that this is an alliance. They agree to fight together because they have common interests, which is to remain independent of American influence. But that does not mean that Hamas, Hezbollah, and Houthis take orders from Iran. They're not controlled by Iran. Iran supports them militarily and financially, but Iran cannot completely control their behavior. So the example is on October 7th, Hamas launched an attack against Israel, right? Which resulted in this war. And Iran says, we were not involved. And Israel says that can't be true because you control Hamas. So that's the first layer of alliance. But what Iran needs to do if it is to win the war is also bring in Russia and China. Russia wants the United States to fight Iran. Why? To distract and weaken the United States, and also to move the attention away from Ukraine, right? Because Russia is about to win the war in Ukraine, and if there's a war in Iran, then the United States will be forced to divert resources away from Ukraine into Iran. What would Russia bring to the table? Russia would probably not deploy soldiers. Well, what Russia would do is say to the United States, when you invade Iran, you are not allowed to use tactical nuclear weapons. Russia would say that, hey, United States, if you use nuclear weapons against Iran, we will use nuclear weapons against you. So basically, Russia would limit the military options of America in a war, which would be of tremendous benefit and advantage to Iran. China needs to help Iran. Why? What does Iran have that China really needs? What does Iran have that China really, really needs? Oil, right? So basically, China can afford for the United States to take over both Iraq and Iran, because then it can control energy supply to China. So China would involve itself over time in order to make sure that it's able to obtain oil from the Middle East. China right now is getting most of its oil from the Middle East. But it will take time for Russia and China to get themselves involved. For Russia and China to get themselves involved in this conflict, Iran must prove two things. What are these two things? What must Iran show to China and Russia in order to get China and Russia involved in this conflict? If you're China and Russia, you're an investor, right? Why will I invest in you, Iran? Why? So the first thing is we will fight. Second thing is we will win. So this will take time for Iran to prove this to Russia and China. And the more that Iran can show it can win, the more that China and Russia will invest in Iran, both financially and militarily and politically. So this will take time. And the third thing is win global opinion. So how will Iran win global opinion? What's happening right now that's helping Iran win global opinion, basically? Or why is the world becoming more supportive of Iran? What thing is happening right now that is outraging or angering the world? Gaza, okay? So this is really important for Iran. It must maintain the world spotlight on Gaza, okay? Because what's happening in Gaza, it's basically genocide, where the Israelis are committed to solving the Palestinian problem once and for all. And that basically means removing the Palestinians from Gaza. They can go to Egypt, they can go to Jordan, it doesn't matter. The Israelis want them out of Gaza. And so this will go on for many, many years. And as long as the attention is on Gaza, then people will become much more sympathetic towards Iran over time. If you've been following the news about America, there have been major protests at Yale and at Columbia and other universities about what's happening in Gaza. And the last is weaken the enemy. What does this mean? It means that when the United States invades Iran 2 years from now, 6 years from now, who knows? But when it does so, it wants to build a large coalition of forces because then it gives itself legitimacy, right? This coalition will consist of NATO, Middle East countries, right? And Israel, Saudi Arabia, many, many countries. And what Iran needs to do is create conflict and dissent in this coalition. And the way it does that is by building up internal dissent. There are many people, most people in America do not support a war against Iran. And so Iran needs to encourage this internal dissent. It can also create conflict between NATO and the United States. Because obviously, America will want NATO involved in its invasion of Iran. But why would France and Germany want to involve itself? So these are the four major goals of Iran. And it must accomplish all four goals if it is to survive an invasion. From now on, everything that Iran does will be to accomplish all four goals. Okay? And this is part of asymmetrical warfare. Now let's look at a concrete example. And the concrete example is Operation True Promise. Why did Iran design Operation True Promise the way it did? And the answer is to accomplish all four goals, right? The first is unite the population. The idea here is Iran needed to show its population that Iran can strike back against Israel. So that's the first thing. Build alliances. Striking Israel is showing its allies and to China and Russia that Iran is willing to fight. Win global opinion. Now, what Iran said is, we designed the strike to not cause damage in Israel. And the reason why is it wants to win global opinion. If it throws all these missiles and rockets at Israel and it kills a lot of people, then there'll be a lot of people sympathetic towards Israel. So the attack was designed not to cause any casualties. And if you are an observer, you think that what Iran did was right, because it's a sense of fairness and justice. What Israel did was wrong. It attacked an embassy of Iran in Damascus. That is against international law. And Iran, to save face, to pursue justice, threw some rockets at Israel. So most people think that Iran's response showed restraint and it was a measured response. And the last thing is weaken the enemy. Why would this weaken the enemy? Because after Iran attacked Israel, Israel wanted to show a strong response. The reason why is that Israel has a policy of disproportionality. So Israel is committed to disproportionality. So what does that mean? It means that if you kill one Israeli, they'll come and kill about 100 of you, 1,000 of you. If you throw one rocket at them, they'll throw 1,000 rockets at you. And the idea here is deterrence, to make you afraid of Israel so you would not dare to think to attack Israel. When Iran attacked Israel, for the first time, by the way, this is the first time that Iran has attacked Israel, then Israel was committed to a disproportionate response. Who stopped Israel from a disproportionate response? Why would the United States say, Israel, do not strike back disproportionately? Why would the United States do that? The United States cannot afford right now to fight another war. And also, if the United States were to fight a war, it would have to do so by itself. NATO would not involve itself. The Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Jordan would not involve themselves either. So the United States had to restrain Israel. And so this is creating conflict between Israel and the United States. So, in other words, from a military dominance perspective, Operation True Promise accomplished nothing because you blew nothing up. But from an asymmetrical warfare perspective, you accomplish all your four major goals. And that's why the Iranians claim success. And you can make the argument that from a strategy perspective, it was a very successful operation.